What is going on, everybody? My name is Conor Lawler. Welcome back to a week of Hero or Zero. This is the Heroes for Hire podcast. We are back again talking one comic book character, as we do every single week. We talk their good points and their bad points, so we generally just give you a bit of a rundown of everything to do with that character. I am joined by my best pal, Mr. Shaun. Me and Shaun, how's it going?
I'm good, Conor. Genuinely, thanks for calling me your best pal. That's really nice.
It's weird when you call it out.
Yeah, well, no, it's a nice thing to do.
It kind of makes me want to take it back, but then that's super
that's much worse.
Yeah, that's much worse,
Conor.
Is it more awkward to just leave it hanging there where I don't feel comfortable with it, or do I take it back altogether?
What if you said this is my best pal and I just said thank you? Would that be better?
This is one of the people I know. Shaun, me and Shaun. How's it going?
Conor, I'm the best man you know, actually.
So if this is your first episode, what we do here is I talk about DC characters. Shaun normally talks about Marvel characters. And every week, as I said, we pick a comic book character and we just kind of let people in. Maybe they haven't heard about them, maybe they haven't read a lot of issues about them, and just kind of give you a crash course of what the character is all about and some stories that they've been involved in.
Big characters or small characters, like Chair, for example.
For example, Chair. That reel is doing way too well. We put up
He's the people's champion.
We put up a video or a reel, I think they're now on Instagram and Facebook, of
a reel and a TikTok
of a highlight of the Chair episode that we talked about, Marvel character that is just a chair, and it got more views than anything, and it continues the trend of Chair infuriating me with his popularity.
Imagine the orb sitting on Chair. That's the podcast, summed up. That's our most
like your
powerful
weird sexual
form.
fantasies.
Look, if anyone wants to draw that for me, send it to me privately.
My girlfriend will break up with me, but look, it'll get pride and place in the sitting room.
That's going on the fridge, lads.
If this is your first episode, don't worry, you don't have to do anything. If this is your second or above, you do have to give us 5 stars or a like and follow whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It would really, really help us out. A comment, I always love a comment. People are very, very kind in the comments, so thank you very much. Spotify also has a Q&A option, so you can leave just a comment underneath that as well at the end of it.
Or you can paste a link to our Patreon for everyone to click on as well. That would also be a very big help to the pod.
Seems weird to do that, but yeah, we do have a Patreon that you can support the show over there. Great. There's a bunch of extra episodes all over there. But Shaun, what Hero Zero, or what I love about Hero Zero, is that the people who listen to us, the kind legends who tune in, they get to recommend characters for us. And one of our longest listeners, one of our favourite listeners, Mr. Kieran, he messaged in on Instagram, and I'm going to give Kieran a shout because he always sends in every month. I normally get one little DM that's just I like this character, we should do that. And I totally respect that. Loads of people do it. Thank you very much to everyone who does that almost on a weekly basis.
It's also very helpful because we do run out of characters frequently.
And one of the characters that Kieran wanted to talk about was DC's Static Shock. Now, this is a character that I think a lot of people love due to the TV show from the early 2000s. And
that we all watched.
Did you not watch Static Shock either?
I didn't watch Static Shock, no. We talked about this. What
animated shows have you seen?
Ed, and Eddie. Totally Spies. That was another one.
My whole childhood was just Batman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, Static Shock. You're barrel through them.
I was busy watching Dragon Ball and shit.
I was busy getting girls, man.
No, girls were icky.
I was 7. This obviously very famous from the show in the early 2000s. So much so that the show is called Static Shock, but his superhero name is basically Static. But I think everyone knows him as Static Shock.
That's just what they refer to him as.
And you could kind of say either, really. But his original incarnation, the comic book that he started in, is just called Static. So I think that is like that is the proper name. But if you say Static Shock, obviously people are going to be like, well, actually, his name is Static. And if you do that, then who gives a fuck? Like, it's fine.
Yeah. If you do that, stop doing that.
Stop doing that, man. It's fine.
Everyone knows who you mean.
But yeah, so Static Shock is also a character that we covered already on the pod 4.5 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Almost
the episode
half a decade ago.
No longer exists. I'm sure it was probably recorded on a phone, and it's a character that I've done a lot more research in since then, so I'm very excited to cover it here. So like a whole generation, as I mentioned, grew up watching him in his own animated series. And it's often wonder why this absolute fan favourite has never really had a bigger role in DC's mythology. If you haven't seen the TV show, this is probably kind of an interesting report, because a lot of people listening will have that nostalgia associated. For you, Static Shock isn't really a character you would ever see then.
No, genuinely, like when we first talked about him 4.5 years ago, that was the main exposure I had to Static Shock, was learning about him through this show.
Crazy. And because of that, the reason why he doesn't appear in a lot of DC's mythology is actually because of licensing.
I was going to say, is it like a rights issue with the production company that made it?
He is actually a character from Milestone Comics, which was a comic imprint published through DC. So there's a weird thing where DC doesn't fully own the character, and his parent company, Milestone, actually works to regulate how he's used. While this means that Static has been able to retain the fantastic personality and ideas that make him such a beloved character, he also hasn't been able to appear in a lot of DC's history as much as he deserves.
That's really interesting, because he's probably a character who stayed... Like, his core ideals have always been the same. He's never had a weird dark turn in the 90s or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And the cool thing about it is Static Shock, the TV show, by the way, that could be a whole episode in itself. And how that got made is fascinating. Static Shock is one of only 3 characters that had an animated show in that period, in like the Bruce Timm verse. And the other 2 are Batman and Superman.
Yeah. Pretty heavy hitters in the comic world.
Like, it's Batman, Superman, and Milestone Comics Static. I mean, I have no idea. The story behind that must be absolutely fascinating, but like the idea that character got picked up and brought in, so fucking cool. Even then.
Yeah.
So Static is obviously he's a flagship character for Milestone Comics. They retain the copyright, the licensing, and the merchandising rights to all their characters, but DC are allowed to kind of put it out, basically.
And Static was a comic first and then a show? Or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So Milestone's Dakota-verse was noteworthy. So they created the Dakota-verse.
Set in Dakota.
Yes. And it was very famous for featuring a lot of African American characters, stories, and creators, right? It was created by comic legend Dwayne McDuffie, and his first appearance was in 1993's Static Shock #1. Or Static #1, depending on whatever way you want to read it. Right?
Yeah, it means the same thing regardless.
I'm just going to mix them up throughout this, but they're the same. They're the same human being. He was one of the 4 flagship titles of Milestone, along with Icon, Hardware, and Blood Syndicate. So, like, they launched all these cool, unique heroes in this small comic book. Imprint. Yeah, in print. So the comics industry was in an upheaval at the time, thanks to the emergence of Image Comics the year before, basically making the entire industry a minefield of new companies. So Image Comics went first, they got super famous, and then what happens is all these little comic companies are like, we're going to be the next
we can do this.
Yeah, we can do it. If they can do it, we can do it. So you had a massive flood of smaller comic book people coming all through at once, and one of them was, of course, Milestone Comics. The book itself, by the way, is a fantastic book. I've read the issue. Virgil is just like, he's such a likeable kid. right? By the way, Virgil Hawkins is his name, right? But Virgil is such a likeable, like, nerdy kid that he's basically Spider-Man in comic book form as well. Like
that, I like that. Like, he's a believable character. He's believable to be a teenager.
Exactly.
At the start.
And he's written as that. And he's just a character that you really, like, immediately I just started reading and I was like, I can see why this character got popular straight away.
Yeah.
And the problem was that Milestone Comics as a whole was forced to decline in much the way as once the big push happened, there's a big massive cliff when they realise, oh wait, not everyone is Image Comics, but now the market is flooded with little comic companies and then not everyone can have a job, so it falls off a fucking cliff, which is what happened in the 90s. The boom was basically unsustainable. Most of the comics were discontinued, but Milestone Media still owned the licenses for its characters and was able to create Static Shock, which was an ongoing animated series on Fox Kids.
Wow, so it just like it got on the lifeboat from the comics crash of the 90s and then straight onto primetime children's television.
Proper Titanic shit. Like, the rest of the place was going down.
Yeah.
And it got on this one lifeboat, 1 in a billion shot of getting the animated show, and then got it and then resurrected it.
And just so happened to be picked up by the greatest comic-based cartoon production company that like ever existed. So
Milestone Comics at the time wasn't part of like DC's continuity. It was a completely new other universe. But then after that, they kind of had to merge them back in. So that's why Batman and all show up in that show. Batman and Robin are all there. And he also appears in Justice League Unlimited. A lot of those episodes, you see him in the future. He's always part of the Justice League, like that's older great. Static. It's super cool. So he also then joined the Teen Titans, like the proper ones, in 2008 in the comics. So to get into Virgil, because Virgil, I haven't actually touched on Virgil, his story itself is super fascinating, how he came to be.
I forget his actual origin, like what actually gave him his
he's
powers.
Born in Paris Island, Dakota City, as the second child of Robert and Jean Hawkins. As a young child, he was relatively close to his uncle and initially wanted to be like him. But his uncle insisted that he stay focused on his studies and make something of himself. His uncle was then unjustly arrested for murders that Virgil knew he didn't commit, but he got arrested. So Virgil started writing endless letters to different law firms, basically trying to get them to release his uncle. None of it worked. His uncle was in jail. Fearing the rise in gang activity may have a negative effect on them, his family moved to the supposedly safer working class neighbourhood of Sadler. So the main thing to remember with Virgil Hawkins is that he's such an amazing character, and that the topics that this comic book touches on are so like they're so needed, especially in the 90s. Like, they touch on gang warfare, they touch on like homophobia, they touch on all that stuff in the 90s that I think mainstream comic books were kind of just like skimming around, not
it was kind of like it was like a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. Yeah, like they wouldn't actually do full stories about it for the most part. But
because it was kind of off to the side, and Milestone were like, we're going to fucking run. It's a young black kid who gets superpowers, and he's in this gang warfare that's going on, and then they're going to actually drive home at that. They have like a whole story of how actually he deals with his own homophobia because his best friend comes out as gay, and he has to kind of internally deal with that himself because it's 1995 or whatever.
Isn't there an episode? I've seen clips of this where he goes to a friend's house and the dad is like super racist.
Yeah, like that's the TV show, you mean?
The TV show, sorry.
Yeah. So the TV shows, but I just mean originally in the comic books, that's where it comes from. Like, it's such a cool idea for just comic books to just see these comic books on the shelves. That like, let's touch on these topics. Let's not just fucking skirt around them because it's important and people can read about this stuff.
Yeah, which is wild because that's the Marvel ethos was like, it was like the world outside your window. But then they would just like not touch on certain things, you know? So
it's weird.
This is the more realistic version of that.
So when he was around 9 or 10 years old, Virgil's mother, Jean, was accidentally hit by a stray bullet. She was an ambulance medic, and she was out helping one of the victims, and she got shot at a gang riot. She died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. So Virgil Hawkins, his mother passed away, but Virgil Hawkins, he's just an average teenager. And he loves comic books and role-playing board games. The only problem is that he gets ridiculed and bullied, mainly by his rival, Martin Scaponi, also known as Biz Money B. And he later becomes a supervillain known as Hot Streak. He's also in the TV show. A lot of the TV show, by the way, changed names. They kind of changed little bits of here and there. Virgil says
the core
the same.
Is still the same.
Yeah, but other people kind of change around them. So after taking a beating from him, so he gets beaten up basically by this guy. His friend Larry Wade asks him to meet him at Paris Island, the most dangerous section of Dakota. And once there, Larry hands Virgil a gun in order to pay back his bully. And he says, like, this is how you get payback, right?
Yeah.
It's sore about. But Virgil can't bring himself to do it. And with that, he tosses the gun in the water. There's one problem, though. That exact same time, there's a gang war going on right nearby. And two gangs are shooting at each other, and the police show up. There's a large brawl between rival gangs. The police arrive and they unleash a tear gas spiked with chemicals that they had just come up with. So the idea of the tear gas was they were going to spike it with chemicals, and it would track young members of the gang that tried to slip away. It would like leave things under clothes that they could then track.
Yeah, they're like sniffer dogs, but like super chemically ones.
Yeah. Unfortunately, didn't really work that way. Things backfired and the gas proved harmful. Out of over 500 gang members that tried to slip away, only 10% of the people exposed to the gas survived. 90% of those kids died.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So this was basically an untested nerve gas that they just threw into gangs of children.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fucked.
So only 10% of them of the kids survived, and the 10% that did survive either mutated into monstrous creatures or gained superhuman powers and abilities. So you either had a 90% chance of dying, or you had a 10% chance, and of the 10%, maybe 2% is superpowers and 8% is big fucking monster.
That's kind of cool. And it's a good way to like, here's this really normal, grounded world. Then one weird thing happens, and then that's what we're working with.
The TV show Misfits, where one thing happens, and you create all of his villains in one go, and you create.
Which is cool because now everyone's figuring it out at the same time.
Exactly. He gets exposed to the gas, and he gains electromagnetic powers, and basically he has the ability to create electricity. To create, he can control anything. Electromagnetic in any way, like any sort of technology,
anything that conducts electricity or
anything like that.
Electricity.
Yeah. But now he'd undergone a massive change. He looked fine. The gas from the big they call it the Big Bang, by the way. That's what it's known as. And it charged Virgil's body with electricity. Using electrokinesis, Virgil was able to create a static field and manipulate the energy. After this discovery, he begins to hoard his powers, and his friend Richie is in the comic books. That's who was, or sorry, his friend in the comic books is called Rick Stone. In the actual show, it's called Richie. They're the same person. If you've seen the TV show, he's Gear. He's the brains.
Right. And did he get exposed as well, or is he just a really smart dude?
So they write around it really cool in the TV show. Is that he's not at the Big Bang, right? And originally he has no powers, and he's just a sidekick that he works with Virgil. That he's on the computers, he helps him out.
He's the guy in the chair.
He's the guy in the chair, but he's Ned. Okay, but then, due to the vapour and the stuff that's still on Virgil's contaminated clothes, and Richie spending so much time with him all the time, he undergoes his own delayed mutation.
That's kind of cool.
And that's how they get around it. So he's granted superhuman intelligence and highly advanced inventing skills, and he gets the name Gear.
That's kind of cool. No one else is adversely affected by, no one mutates badly. No one, the bad mutations that happen, people turn into monsters. None of that happened from people spending a lot of time.
No. It was that's, I think, why Gear's powers are just he gets super smart. In that, it's a much lesser power
Right, he's not like controlling fire or something.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have like the ability to fly or anything. He just
probably enhances what he already had a little
he's
bit.
He's super smart as it is, but he just becomes smarter
That's cool. I like
hanging
that.
out with him. So basically Static is born from that. He gets his powers, very Spider-Man-esque, gets the powers. He's just a kid. He's going to school. And he's just like, right, you have powers now. You got to use them for
what do I do
good or bad. It's up to you. So one of his best friends, Frida Gorn, who appears a lot in the comic books, Frida, she finds out that Virgil is Static after he takes yet another beating from Biz Money B, who's now Hot Streak. And so Hot Streak, by the way, power of flames, pure fire.
Cool.
Of course.
Nice. Classic.
She later becomes more of a confidant than a friend to him as she keeps his secret. So she's like, her and Richie are his two people that they keep their secret identity. And Rick Stone, or Richie, I've called him Richie in this because he's called Richie the TV show, but he's Rick in the comic books. You can mix and match once again.
We all know what it means.
Yeah. So Richie's the one who actually comes out as gay in the comic books. And at first Virgil is unable to deal with this. But later comes to deal with his homophobia and has to look inward upon himself of like, how does he become a better friend
really interesting.
to Richie? And because he reacts badly and then he feels like fucking shit, and he's like, well, he's still Richie, like it doesn't matter because it's 1995. So different world,
very different time.
Different
also
world.
Like definitely feels like something that was written from an actual experience as well, not just like, hey, let's write the gay character story now. But like, hey, no, this is important to write this.
And it's important for the character to, especially our hero, to deal with, maybe he does have flaws. Like he has personality flaws, that he's been a dick of a fucking friend. And he's got to come around to that, to be like, oh, I shouldn't be a fucking dick. Maybe
I've learned that now.
Maybe Richie's actually still cool. You know what I mean? And to say, so how he gets around that as well within the same story is he has to save Rick, or Richie. As Hot Streak and a load of his cohorts basically organise the plan that they're going to attack Richie. He goes and he meets up other people who have come out as gay in the area, and Hot Streak and all that are going to crash that and beat the shit out of everyone because they're all homophobic.
That's awful.
Yeah. So Virgil basically has to be like, I'm not them.
What a very real villain that is.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like proper, like, he has electric powers and the other guy has fire powers, but it's like, no, I'm going to beat up some gay people.
Yeah. That's like, it's close to home. Like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Very well written. But
Virgil then has to go through his own thing. Well, like, if I don't like Richie because I'm kind of on their side, and am I okay with them getting the shit out of him? And I'm like, well, no, I'm fucking not. Like, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, so he has
you're seeing him unravel all of this.
Yeah, you're seeing him, like, what side of the argument is he on? So eventually he shows up and he, like, is fighting. And Richie, in desperation, actually shoots Hot Streak at one stage to try and get him away. But eventually the problem is, Virgil comes in, Hot Streak runs away, and Virgil and Richie kind of talk it out. How they kind of figured it out in the 90s was he actually teams up with, he comes across to the DC universe to team up with some of its heroes, Superman, Superboy and Steel, during a story called Worlds Collide, which was a crossover between Milestone and DC Universe that they did.
Cool. Yeah.
And they team up against a villain named Rift, and he's later defeated when Static uses his powers to trap him and send the heroes back to their universes. So that's kind of like how they first introduce him to the rest of the DC. This is like 90, I think it's 96, maybe 95, that they do this. But it's like it's a very quick. He's technically part of DC now. He's had that.
He's interacted with these people, and they know him, and he knows them.
Exactly.
And also, Milestone probably saw a big jump in sales once that happened.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So Virgil really quickly realised that being a superhero, Shaun, I'm going to read this paragraph and you imagine at the start that I say a different superhero's name.
Okay.
Virgil quickly realised that being a superhero was more strenuous than he thought. He couldn't use his powers to deal with his bullies, since that would reveal his identity. He couldn't hold down even the most menial job just due to his demands, and his grades began to suffer.
Oh my, he's literally Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's great.
But like in a cool way, not like in a we don't have enough of those characters that like they're in school and they're just trying to. That's what makes Peter Parker so cool.
That's what makes any time he does heroics and sacrifices his own happiness. That's what makes him a hero. Yeah, like every time he does that, you're like, fuck, this dude really just wants to help people.
Yeah, and like Static is the exact same. So like Static, that's like the classic. He's in school. He's like, I gotta just do school stuff, but then there's somebody fucking getting mugged. Like, I gotta use my powers to help them. I gotta leave school, like, if something's happening.
And then he gets in trouble for leaving school.
So, amid his crusade and his issues, he was having a few... By the way, one of his heroes is Green Lantern, John Stewart. Like, it's cool, he idolises loads of black superheroes. In his world, they're called Soul, Power and Anansi. And then Green Lantern's, the John Stewart's Green Lantern as well, is like a massive hero for him.
That's really cool.
So, amid his crusade and issues, Static eventually finds some comfort in a different hero known as Dusk, who's an enigmatic fellow adolescent vigilante with a strong code of justice. So when Static basically he starts displaying like kind of a bit more aggressive of a tone. And so when he first meets Dusk, then he's like, oh, you have the same kind of vibe as me. You're a bit more aggressive. I kind of like that. So him and Dusk really hit it off. And Dusk displays admiration for his work and basically to start a bit of a romance. And he actually has a girlfriend at the time, but he's dating Dusk on the side, you know.
So dating Virgil. Dusk as Static and then dating the other person as
Virgil. Yes.
It's a classic move.
It's a classic Spider-Man move, man. And so the two of them actually took a turn when they assisted the police on a drug bust, only for Static to discover that one of the dealers was his friend Larry from the very start, the guy who gave him the gun.
Yeah.
Right? And he finds out that Larry's there. Shocked, Static initially lets Larry go, basically putting a slight rift between him and Dusk. Because Dusk is like, we kill them. Like, we fucking fight the drug dealers. We stop them. We get them out of here. What do you do? And he's like, I know that one. And she's like, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, he's bad. Like, she's like Punisher level of like, you're either bad or you're good.
And the two heroes caught up with Larry a day later, just as some other dealers decided it was time to silence him. Dusk was injured trying to protect Larry, who was ultimately killed in the firefight. So Larry gets shot, right? Oh. And Dusk eventually is like, okay, I'm going to try and protect him because Virgil likes him.
Yeah, he vouches for him and I trust him.
He vouches for him. So she tries to protect him. Larry still gets killed. Virgil, or Static, basically gets thrown into an unparalleled fit of rage, and he brutally beats down every single thug that had anything to do with his best friend's fate before the parting. He then intends to just give up on being Static. And
Jesus. And he's like a kid still at this point. Like, he is a child.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
And so, like, he finds out that not only, like, he's kind of given up, then Frida, his best friend, she gets devastated as well because she was actually kind of in a relationship with Larry. And, like, they have, like, a whole story of how, like, she stops eating and her grief, basically, she becomes leaner and leaner in the comic books. And then he finds out, like, she's become anorexic, that she just hasn't eaten in weeks because her... And, like, they deal with all of this in the comic books. And not only that, then his current girlfriend Daisy breaks up with him because she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Where have you been? And he had to be like, oh, well, I was Static and fucking Larry died.
Yeah.
And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, basically he's just completely devastated and he just gives up on being a superhero and goes back to being a normal kid. Yeah. Static shock no more, he says.
Yeah, and there's his costumes in the bin. Oh, it's a beautiful panel.
In the following months since his retirement, Virgil's bond with Frida basically strengthens. And like they become like really, really close, that they're just chatting. They're just living a normal life, that he's not always away and he's always interacted. But when a mysterious villain shows up and starts kidnapping a lot of the metahumans that were there that night, they're known as Bang Babies. It's a weird name. We're not going to...
Technically, all babies are Bang Babies.
Technically true. Technically true. Virgil was reluctant to get involved, even when asked by numerous heroes that, like, you're the only one that can save all of them. There's somebody going around kidnapping all the people that
But he's still
like,
I just got my own life back together.
Yeah.
Like,
he's been back, like, being Virgil for like 3 or 4 months at this stage. And he's like, I'm happy.
But he has to...
Can you see what's going to happen, Shaun?
Great power. He has a great responsibility.
Virgil ultimately relents and he joins his former allies to solve the crisis, eventually discovering that the villain was the legendary John Tower, a hero he looked up to. Tower had basically been trying to steal all the superpowers from all the superhumans around the area to, like, better himself, and Static has to fight him and like overcome him.
He has to beat his, like, idol, like.
And basically empowered by the good he had done, Virgil informs Frida that he intends to return to his role as Static, but only as a part-time hero. He's not doing full-time.
He's setting boundaries.
He's setting boundaries, yes. There's also a whole storyline in... I'm going to leave it there just because I think that's a cool place to end it. But there's a whole storyline, by the way, in Static that they cover 9/11. I'm not even being like... they then go into, like, kids in the area who are from the Middle East who are then getting racially attacked because of 9/11, and Static has to come in and be like, he's like, there's a moment where he shows up to try and attack the racist mob, and then he's like, no, and then he de-escalates the violence and he has them arrested, and they have to, like, work on this, like, how do you don't mean violence with violence? It's fucking fascinating.
That's so wild and, like, super important in the wake of 9/11.
Like, there's no reason he should do all that. It's so cool that there's a character that does all that.
And also for the writers to not, like, shy away from it or be like, oh, let's just not address 9/11 in this universe, you know? Yeah. Which arguably they could, you know? They could just say it didn't happen, but it was important at the time.
Yeah, I think Static is such a cool fucking hero and he covers so much ground and he delves into some really cool, interesting stories. I'd really recommend reading some of his issues from the 90s if you can find them online. His powers and abilities. Powers is his physiology was altered by a mutant genetic explosion, as we talked about, or the gas. And he has superconductive electromagnetism. So Static can sense sources of electromagnetic energy or objects that can be affected by it. He can magnetize and demagnetize metals. He can do electromagnetic fields. He's got mechakinesis. He's capable of fixing or operating electronic devices. That's just at will.
In the 90s, super useful. Now, incredibly useful.
Yeah, he just basically controls the world. Electromagnetic levitation. He uses the what's the fucking thing that he makes that he flies on?
A little disc thing, is it?
The static saucer.
Great.
He builds it and he flies along on that. It's just a fucking cool look. He's got wavelength tuning. He can hear radio waves, meaning he can listen in on the police broadband when...
He's just the perfect crime fighter. Like,
he's so good. Mental resistance. As the brain, you're going to like this one. As the human brain is an electromagnetic organ, and due to his status as a metahuman, Static has demonstrated considerable opposition to virtually all forms of hypnosis and mind control. Because the brain is technically electromagnetic organ, he can, like, enhance it so it doesn't get taken over.
That's genius. That's so clever. As a power to have, like, I love that.
He's got ball lightning. He can throw fucking balls of lightning at you if he wants.
So he could presumably move people's bodies then with his mind.
Probably, yes.
Because your body is controlled by all electricity.
That's true, actually. I don't think they delve into that, because then he would be like...
It's pretty horrifying to think of. But
yeah, it's like the guy in Misfits who can control milk.
Yeah, the exact same.
The exact same. He's got high intelligence because he's already a gifted student as it was. He has a prowess in science. And so that's why he's able to develop his own hover disc that he flies on. He's got tactical analysis, multilingualism, power absorption. His weaknesses are people can take his powers from him. So, like someone can take it from him. He's also Static's power has no effect on things that have natural resistance to his abilities, such as wood or rubber. So he's not able to attack them.
Makes sense, but people don't generally go for killing with wood and rubber, you know?
True. And yeah, his teleportation or transportation is the static saucer that he uses to fly through the air, and it's just like a cool visual that
That's
he can
such a cool character. Like, reading the comics when they first came out must have been just completely different to whatever else was going on at the time, and then for the show to also do that as well is a real home run. Probably because they kept the rights.
And you know what? It's super fascinating that he isn't more famous. Like, if that TV show didn't exist, nobody would really know who Static was. And it's so cool because a character that's well-rounded, you would think DC would drive into the ground and be like, this is a great character. Let's go all in. Let's put him in every single story. Justice League, Teen Titans, everything. He's in everything.
Yeah.
And they can't. So... if you read a lot of issues, he never really pops up. But if I say Static Shock, people who are like our age will know who he is just from that TV show.
Yeah, and it's probably the most exposure the character ever had to a general audience.
Yeah.
Man, what a cool character, Connor. I'm glad we talked about him today.
Yeah, it was fun delving into that. I was trying to put together the report in the most cohesive way possible.
It's like, I like it. It's like a history of the publication as well, which is cool. Like,
especially a publication that small, and like they came up with Static, so
yeah. I
mean, you got to give them props.
Now you have a whole other universe you can pick from for reports.
They only have 4 heroes.
Well, you have 3 more reports in the bag.
3 more reports. Shaun, would you like to take us out?
Yes, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Hero or Zero. We will be back on Wednesday with Weird News Wednesday, then next Friday with another episode of Hero or Zero. Big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/Heroes for Hire podcast. If you want to go over there to really help out the show, help us to keep on making it, be very much appreciated. There is also a merch store link below, heroesforhire.ie/shop. Twitter is @HeroesForHirePod, the 4 is the number 4. Facebook is Detective Divilment's discussion group. Instagram is Heroes for Hire Podcast. And the best way to ever help out the show is to tell one human being that we exist.
Just a one, please.
And I think that's about it, Connor.
I think so. So I've been Conor Lawler.
I've been Shaun Beale.
We shall see you all next week, guys.
Bye.